Hey everybody, and welcome back. Right, well, we're just going to continue where we left off. That was a longish video last time. It was funny, I didn't think I had a lot, and I just kept beavering on because I didn't see an easy place to stop once I started putting the engine together. So anyway, you can always watch half of it and then switch off and watch half later on, can't you? So today we will adjust the valves, time the ignition, do the last of the wiring. That'll get that all up out of the way under the saddle and stuff, see where that goes. Then we'll do that modification to the air filter, because I thought how to do that, make it relatively simple and not add anything extra to the end of the piece that screws onto the carb. What else will we do? So I suppose we'll put the carburetor cable on and the twist grip and various bits and pieces like that, and then possibly get round to doing the exhaust. I'm not sure, depends on how easily things go. Alright, so nothing else to report. I'm just going to press on. If you're wondering about my 1 horsepower project here, this is a little job for a friend of mine, Bill, who you may remember we put different wheels in his C15. Actually his C15C, I think it was in an early video because I rebuilt that. But this is a hollow bronze statue which has a rider with it who's over the other side, and both rider and horse have suffered a little bit of damage that goes on down there. So I've done the man's arm on one side came off and his foot on the other side, so I've welded them on. Unfortunately this bronze seems to be a high zinc content bronze, so when I started tigging it, I tried it first of all with gas. I did a little bit on the foot of the fella on the bottom so he wouldn't see it, because I wasn't sure what the colour match would be like. Actually it turned out pretty well, but tigging seemed to be the way to go. But I was just getting, you know, the white fumes and powder and stuff. It was bad. So I've been wearing a mask, which is a little difficult under your welding mask, but I've been wearing a mask, and I found actually that if I upped the flow rate for the shielding gas, that tended to blow the stuff out a little bit. It was even causing a problem, I couldn't quite see the puddle. So anyway, I've managed to do the rest, so we'll get this on. This is really heavy, as you can imagine. I had to use the tractor to lift it out of his pickup, and then I remembered I had this trolley, so it goes on that and I can wheel it around. So anyway, that's one little side thing I'm doing for him. But importantly, let's get back to the B50. Right, slight operator error there. I didn't press the little record button. We haven't missed much. I've put the little spacing piece in. I've put the little split collet on. We're all set to top dead center. So on this one, it says the little blue mark there, and there is a punch mark. So don't worry that the paint will get rubbed off. You set it to top dead center, and then on this, well, you can see this, there are degree marks. So the instructions give you a little chart. B50, it says set it at 34 degrees to that little mark when we're at top dead center. Then the FA, which I suppose stands for forward advance, that mark is for if you do it with a strobe. Once you've got it set, you can adjust it with a strobe, and then that mark should line up with that. So as I say, I've put the little spacing piece in, put the little split collet in that holds it on. I've put a piece of alloy in there, and I've checked that when that's tight like that, basically we're at top dead center. But we've got these set in the center so we can move it a little bit. So this goes on and gets set to 34 degrees. and then there's a shouldered bolt that goes, a bolt nut that goes in there like thus. Now hang on, I've got to look here because I don't see how you're going to tighten this up to, oops, 50 pound, that like that. Okay, let me just read up here. Should be level. The dished part of the rotor where the fitting nut locates should be level with the end of the crankshaft, which it was. Okay, fit the original step nut. Now they supply you with a step nut. Tighten the rotor nut to about 40 pounds. Okay, let me switch you off and get the torque wrench out, which I should have done before. Right then, well, here goes. God, that looks as if it's catching the wire there. I didn't like the sound of that. Hang on, hang on. The hell's going on here? I can't see anything wrong anywhere. That really did look as if it was up against those wires. Let me look into this. Well, everything looks fine. What the hell that was? There's no cracks, nothing's broken. There's our little spacer, there's the split collet. This wire seems to be, remember how it going underneath? Oh, thought things were going too well. Let that go under there, like that. As it gives me any more space. Okay, let me put it all back together again and we'll start once more. Right, well, I put it back together. Actually, I might be able to do this. Where is it? What do I do with that? And I found, when I put this on, look, that sticks a long way out. And it says that should be level with that. Now, funnily enough, years ago, when I used to use PVLs from Sammy Miller, I got one and it didn't seem to be, they have a different system, but well, cause it's just ignition. But the pickup wasn't centered right, and I thought, this is funny. And when I checked the spacer they'd sent, I had to make a new spacer. I had to make a new one, or I had to face a little bit off. And then everything lined up. And then when I was talking to them, when I ordered some more stuff, I mentioned that. And he said, hang on a minute. And he went off and checked. And a whole batch of spacers that they had made were the wrong thickness. And of course, typical. Muggins here gets the first one, I suppose. So, it looks as if I have got to make a new spacer. That's why it's going right up against the wires. I still don't know what that little cracking noise was. But if it was going too far in, just inside there, there's a mark. I've made a mark. It's touching that back. Okay. I thought perhaps the sprocket was too far in, because you can get you can get spacers to go behind the sprocket, but I've just measured this in several places against the face of the chain case here, and it's 7/16 all the way around, so I know that's lined up right. So let me put this on here. And rather than just add a piece, another spacer, I'm going to make up a new spacer, and that is, I'll go and get the depth gauge, but that's basically 1/8 of an inch. So let me go and measure that properly, make up a new spacing piece. Right, well, actually, that might explain something. I just pressed the record button then and the little thing didn't come on. I made a new one. There's 130 thou thicker, so that goes on. That goes on, and actually that brings that right to the end of the shoulder there. So that's looking good. And then there we are. Flush. Funny, it looked flush before. Anyway, let me put the stator back on. So let's try again. Now, we're missing the wires now. So we just check we're 40 foot-pounds. Got our little alloy snagger in the chain. There we go. And hang on, I can't see. Can't see. And my torch has vanished. And the light's vanished. Everything's vanished. Hang on. Right then, so while we're still at top dead centre, we'll set these. And they're a bit awkward to get at, so I have over the years sort of made up a couple of little, there's an 8 for the inlet, 10 for the exhaust. And the lock nut is 7/16. and I've found that 7mm fits that. These are a long way out. Oh, come on. See, once one thing starts to go wrong, everything goes wrong. So we'll take this down till it's tight. And then we will adjust it. Alright, you just saw me holding them. There we go. 8th out. Now my hand's definitely going to get in the way. That seems good. You want them tightish on these, I've found. In fact, I think Rupert Ratio sets them a little more technically, and he doesn't give anywhere near the clearance that BSA say. Oh dear. Moving all over the place, isn't it? Should put a little bit of releasing fluid on. I don't know why they're so stiff. I think that's it. Well, God almighty. Can I tighten this up without moving? Of course, you could get one of those little tools. I have one for the Triumph, but although the lock nut's the same size, the right. Yeah, very nice. Okay, let me do the exhaust one. And finally, we'll put the cover on. New fibre washer, and you know, these are probably, although these are really good, the commonest damage that I see, or I used to see when I would work on British bikes, because people would use, at the very least, an adjustable spanner, more often than not, you know, a pair of Stilsons, a pipe wrench. Because, for some reason, here we are, look, 73, it's still with flats. And you know why that is? It's because BSA were cheap. Or I would assume so anyway. That they had the dies to cast these, and they never bothered to make them in the same size as all the other nuts and bolts they put on this bike. Right, now then, being as how that last job was a bit annoying, I always find the thing that cheers me up after some annoying is to make something. So we're going to do the carburetor thing, alright? Actually, there is one other thing, although we won't do anything about it at the moment, but it mentions in the instructions that you might have to grind off a little bit of this for clearance on here. Now there's the tips of a gasket, of course. Come on, Dowell, get in there. Yeah. Oh, come on. See, I told you I needed to do something to calm me down. That's up against that. You get one thing right, and something else won't work. Okay, well, I'll look at that later. Now, I've taken the let go bits, just put them over there out of the way so we can see this. Now, as you can see, it's right up against here. It's not actually touching it, but the carb points upwards and to the left. So we want to get it centered and helpfully point down a little bit so that this is nicely there, like that. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. Oh, by the way, I just looked on the instructions and it said for the B50 you might have to take 2 to 3 millimeters off the inside of the case. So there's what I've just added to that spacer. I think they know the problem here. Okay, let me show you what I'm going to do. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to mark this here and cut it. Now, it's screwed on tight, so it can't screw on anymore, because as we're going to give it a dog leg, we're going to make sure that when we screw it back on, the dog leg's pointing where we want it. So what I'm going to do is this. So here it is, a straight piece of tube. I'm going to cut it at an angle, as yet to be determined. Because if you do that, look, and you say turn it round 180 degrees, the cardboard's a bit iffy. See, that points it down, but also this diameter here and that diameter are going to be the same, so you can actually swivel that. See, so that's still pointing down, but now it's pointing to the right. So what I can do is make sure I cut it, and I've got to make sure I cut it the long end in the right place. See, the long end's got to be at the top. So we'll mark all that. So we're going to not only turn it down, but we're going to turn it so that it's going to the right. You can see, say this is squishy. You can see there it's going to the right. Going down, and then we twiddle it a bit and it's going to go to the right. So all I'm going to do is mark this in the right place, take it off, cut it, then we'll put the air filter on the piece we've cut off, and we'll twiddle it round till we get it where we want it, mark it, then we'll weld it up. Right, well, so I've cut these, I put that one in there. Now we'll see if I got this right. That mark there is actually the top, there's a casting mark on the top of the carb. So hopefully when I screw this on here, it'll still line up. That's on good and tight. And hang on. Wobbliness, out of focusedness. Bear with me here, people. There you are. See it there? Little T. And you can see it's, where's my finger? Where's my finger? There it is. There's the little mark, and there's a casting mark, and there's that. So let me move you back. Right, this is all making you feel sick, isn't it? Shouldn't have had that extra pint. Right, so now we put that on there. See, we can have it from being pointed straight down like that to turning it round a bit and having it point like that into the centre. That I think is pretty good. Alright, so let me make a couple of marks and then we'll go and weld it. It's me again. I sort of do my editing as I do each bit of film, which is why it doesn't take me long to do it. It just suddenly struck me, I kept talking left, right and saying right when it should be the left, so don't take any notice of what I say. Right, well, I've tacked it together, but I found that actually the dog leg meant I couldn't screw it on with the carb on. So we've got to put the carb off, take the carb off, screw that on there. Of course you are going to be able to get the actual filter on without taking the carb off, but so that's no big deal. Oh, by the way, it was just when I was setting the welder up there, the TIG up, if any of you ever have to do any welding like I've just done on that bronze statue, I found that I saw a mention of this on YouTube. I looked up welding bronze statues and it said there use AC, which I did. And that's what really helped with the welding. Alright, as I say, I always tighten these things up, because if they can wobble they can be out of line, and then you make everything up, and when you do tighten it up, it doesn't fit. Okay, let's have a little look. Oh, how about that? That fits on beautifully. Yeah, it's not in the way of anything here. Very good. Hang on. Goes on, yes. That's a treat. That's a treat. Okay. Let me take this off, weld it up properly. Right then, so there it is, welded, polished out, everything ready to go on. So let me put this on and put the air filter on. Right, so there it is on. Let me zoom you in a little bit. And you can see now we've got a gap here, look, all the way around. But I'm going to have to take the carb off because I've realised you can't get the top off with it on there to put the cable on. So anyway, do that later on because it's getting towards the end of the day. And let me swing you around. Put it on autofocus. There you go, look. I took it out yesterday, wrote a load of sections, it was a lot of fun, so it's a nice day. I'm going to finish the day off with a few sections and I'll see you tomorrow. Right, it's the next morning. That's Tuesday. It's good news and bad news morning already. Alright, I popped the decompressor cable on, which is nothing special. Maybe I should show you this from the other side. Hang on. Right, there we go. Okay, the only thing that's slightly strange about this and might seem counterintuitive is that the cable doesn't go in this end where the threaded part is. On this one, it's not the outer that stays static and the inner that pulls. The inner stays static, and when you pull on the lever, the outer cable, if you like, pushes. You know, as usual, got the cable on. It doesn't exactly fit. I've had to put a little split ferrule on there because the cable was sort of too long and I wasn't going to start unsoldering it. As you can see at this end, I've taken it all the way out maxed out its adjustment. So if you watch the little lever there, which you remember works on the exhaust valve, when I pull the decompressor, right, so that's how it works. So as I say, the inner cable is kept captive at this end, and the outer cable is pushed, slid along the inner cable like that. Alright, so that's that done. So there was a minor thing. The other thing is this, and that is the throttle cable. See, that's pulled all the way out. That's got to reach to all the way around here to go into that little notch. So I'm going to have to unsolder the end, shorten the outer and whatever. There you go. So now we can come back to this, and I've been thinking and looking at this. When I try to put the outer cover on, it touches on here, and it's near enough 3/8, so I can't just grind a little bit off there. So then I got thinking about it, and I also, oh, there's a lorry coming. I also went and looked at the video of me putting the one on the C15, which was the same unit, right? And it had the same thing about the end of the shaft being level with the dished part of that. But I can't find the instructions I got with the C15 one. As in the video, I said that the instructions said to put this as close to the sprocket as possible, and that set me thinking, because I could see quite clearly with the C15 that it didn't have the supplied alloy spacers in. And then I thought, wait a minute, if we forget about lining up the end of the shaft, then the important distance is actually not a sort of absolute distance like that is, or an absolute measurement. It's a relative measurement. All I need is this to be in the right position reference to that, so that I don't press against the back or crunch the wires or anything. So I could move the whole of this backwards. As long as I move this back and that back the same amount, I'm fine. So, and that's what I did with the C15 one. As I said, there's no spacers in here. So I'm going to take this off. Fortunately, when I bought the C15 one, I lashed out and bought the extractor to pull this off. So we're going to take this off, take the stator off, and remove these spacers here. And get that so the stator, because actually when I look in the back of here, there's about that much gap to the sprocket. I can move this whole thing backwards. So I don't know whether the instructions are just a little bit generic or what. But what we're going to do is take this off and try and move the whole thing back. So let me get this taken off. Right, so I've got it off. Tell you what, it doesn't have to go on tight on that split collet thing, but the puller pulled it off fine. Alright, and Michael strikes again. Alright, here's the fitting instructions, okay, blah 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 blah. Read them all. Didn't notice it's mentioned a piece on page 4, which is the back of the wiring diagram. And there's the bit that tells you to put it as close in there as possible. See how much they're sticking out? I tell you, I'm my own worst enemy. So, alright, so I've taken everything off. That is touching the rear sprocket. Alright. Aye. Wow! I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'm going to measure the distance here and then make up some spaces slightly more than that. So I'm trying to get, and then we'll go together, look. Will you look? Can you see it there? There's the tiniest little sliver of metal that's managed to get itself exactly at right angles. There it is, look. Hey. Oh, it's gonna be one of those days. I feel it in my water. There's an old English phrase for you, for those of you who are not English and not old. Although I do find watching television programs, although I don't actually have a television, so I should say watching DVDs and what have you, that of all the, if you like, Commonwealth countries and what have you, and ex-colonies, our Australian friends seem to be very close to original language. 187. In other words, you've got a lot of slang words and stuff that we still use. Alright, so that's 187. So I'll make them, I think, just over 200. Hang on. Right. That's 35 thou. Let's add 35 thou on. Or close to, where did I say it was? 187. So we'll add 33. That'll be 220 thou. So let me, I might be able to turn them down to 220. Let's see if I can get a grip of them in there. So getting hold of just a little bit. I want them 220, and right now they are 472, so they want to be half that length. 220. See, 220 or 470 is 250. Well, 1/4 of an inch, that's as much as I can get a grip of in the lathe. Might be easier to try and grip these with a little V block in the milling machine, take the top off. Let me go and see and I'll show you what I decide. Right, so as usual, I won't really show you the machining, but this is how I solved the setup. Measured the OD and it was 1/2 inch, so I thought, perfect. Put it in a 1/2 inch collet, the hexagonal collet holder, and that'll go in my 3 chuck. And that can really grip this just that less than 1/4 inch sort of thing. So all I'm going to do is take 250 off this. And hang on, seeing as I'm showing you the setup. So what I do is got the magnetic dial indicator there. So if it wasn't in this collar block, if it was just in the jaws, what I do is I come and I just do a little skim face in here, move this up against there, set it to 0, and then as I come in I can take off, and I could measure by 250 thou there. So I missed a step. When I've taken the skim, I would then measure it and work out how much I wanted to take off. But here of course I can't do that because it's in a collet block, but I've already measured this and we know it's 470 odd and we want to take 250 off. So I'll just touch off on the end here and then come along 50 thou at a time and take my 250 thou off and then just swap them over. So that'll take me a little while and then we'll put it back together again. So now we have 3. That one, for some reason, the other one was tight going on there as well. It's a little bit at the edge, look, because once it's on, it's loose. So that's that one. Let's have a look, see what we've got here. Yes, that's just nice. I can see a gap. Okay, so actually now we want a little bit spacer there as well. So I'll just put a few washers on for now. so we can get all our measurements made. And then I'll have to make up a couple of little spaces for them. Never rains but it pours. What do we want here? 5/16? Three. I think 3 is enough. See, I could have used the smaller ones on there. Pink. Right, let me put the rest on. Right, I've just put 3 ordinary nuts on there because I'm going to be putting them on and off and on and off. So I'm going to put the original spacer on. Okay, now of course that goes further there. I've forgotten I haven't taken the extractor off here yet. Bear with me. Started raining now as well. Okay, so let's put this on here and see what happens. Those washers are too big. Right, I've put 8mm washers on because they have a smaller OD. Now then, I can't see. Obviously it doesn't seem to be catching on anything. Let me have a look. Well, it's not crushing the wires, and the marks are just up to there. See, I'm worried about if these are centered well enough inside there, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think we're in good shape here, people. My mistakes notwithstanding, you can see how much that stands proud there. So if you follow those instructions, but then it did say use the original nut and it gives you a new nut. Alright, so let me make up 3 little spaces, because it's a bit untidy sticking 3 washers there, so I'll make up 3 little spaces. You've seen how this gets timed, so I'll do all that and just bring you back when it's on. Right, it is now 5:30 and I've only just finished doing that. I've made and remade spacers, I've fiddled on. Everything that could cause a problem has, and finally grind. I've got that so that I put some marking dye on the back. It turns, it doesn't touch the case, but there is bugger all here. I'm thinking I might make a nice disc up, weld it in, polish it all off, because I don't see me getting the screw in the back here, but the front, and it's so close. But that was a real marathon. As I say, it's taken me about 3 hours. At one point I thought I had everything right, and when I tightened up, nothing would turn. So the annoying part is, of course, that every time you've got to take stuff off and use the extractor to pull it off, and then I couldn't time it. It kept moving when I was timing it. So anyway, it's on now. I've got a gasket in. That's actually screwed up tight, and I can turn the engine and nothing rubs. So if I go any further in with the rotor, I'm jammed up that way. If I come any further out, a catch on this. So I'm sure that's the absolutely right spot. So in the end, I had to thin down the original spacing piece. I also had to take off a little bit of the shoulder on this nut because it wasn't going all the way in. But it's all done. So that's obviously enough for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Right, well, been busy this morning. Actually, it's after lunch. Had the tree contractors for the power company round. They'd come and cut a load of stuff down from the power lines and then just gone away and left, I think I told you, piles of stuff all over. And I've been complaining and complaining and complaining. It finally turned up today. So you have to keep an eye on them. I'm afraid just nowadays, just asking somebody or giving somebody some instructions and typical as well, they came and they said, oh, the logs, yeah, we got the note. You want the logs cutting up for a burn pit? I said, burn pit? I never mentioned anything about a burn pit. So, you know, consequently I was in and out. Anyway, so what I did do, you can see I'm feeding these wires through, and if you remember that when we were setting up, I've got a blooming thing, come on now, be a good boy. I didn't want them to run along the top here. Where they normally go, and there's a stupid little wire clip that goes in here, but I decided I didn't like that, and as we're going to have a bash plate on, they'll be well protected. So you may remember we ran them up the back to see if they would be long enough, and they just were. So and what I'm going to do is, oh, there's another inch. Oh yeah. So I'm going to fasten these to the oil line. They're nicely out the way of the sump. Yeah, they'll be fine. Okay. So now we've got to come up to the top. Right, so here's where those wires come up. So those two yellow are going to go to these two yellow. The red and the black there are going to go to, where are we? The red and the black on there. And then these three, which are just nicely long enough, are going to go on those three there. And as I say, we'll fasten them to this oil line. Everything will be nice. So let me put some connectors on and get this wired up, and then we'll chuck everything up out of the way. That's the wiring done. We can even put the saddle on and bolt it down. Right, well that's going to have to be it for this week because I've got other stuff to do. But I stuck a couple of bits on for you to have a look. And of course, part of the course with this project, put this on, won't go on with the proper rubbers. It's sort of touching here, and it's a little way off there, so don't know what that is. And on the other side of the tank I noticed a little mark, so I started cleaning it off, and there's like a patch of paint that, I don't know, it's grey and not white, so I might have to redo the whole tank. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do with that side panel. But anyway, I welded the original screw-on piece into there. Now, if any of you are thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that because now you can't do the timing with a strobe. But don't forget, when you used to take this off to do it with a strobe, you adjusted the timing on the points on the other side. To adjust the timing with this unit, you've got to be able to turn the stator, so you'd have to have the cover off anyway. And I've just noticed that the alloy I've used to weld this in, the filler rod, doesn't quite match. So you can see it. You have to sort of get down and look, but you can see it. So anyway, all the wiring's tucked away and everything's nicely done. But I have a couple of things to do in the last days of this week, so that'll have to be it. But everything else seems to be pretty good. I like that black stripe. I don't know whether you can see it from over there, but there's the black stripe with the gold line. It really picks it out well. Okay, so bit of a struggle with that electronic ignition lighting unit, but hey, things happen. So as I say, that's it for today. I have to walk around to switch you off. That's it for the week. So until next week, you all stay safe and enjoy yourselves.